Iblis. Iblis is the primary devil figure in Islamic theology, a being created from smokeless fire who became the first to disobey Allah. Originally named Azazil, according to some Islamic traditions, he served among the angels with devotion until Allah commanded all to bow before the newly created Adam. Iblis refused, arguing his superiority since he was made from fire, while Adam was formed from clay. For this act of pride and disobedience, Allah cast him out of heaven, but granted him respite until Judgment Day to prove that humans are unworthy of their elevated status. This reprieve transformed Iblis into humanity's eternal enemy, dedicated to leading souls astray through whispers called waswasa. He commands armies of shayateen, lesser demons, and Ifrit in his mission to corrupt mankind. The Quran references Iblis in multiple chapters, including Surah al-Baqarah, Al-Araf, and Sad, establishing him as central to Islamic understanding of evil, temptation, and free will. Unlike Western depictions of Satan with horns and pitchfork, Islamic tradition presents Iblis as a formless tempter who operates through subtle psychological manipulation. His fall from grace establishes pride as the cardinal sin in Islamic theology, and scholars teach that his refusal to humble himself before creation demonstrates how arrogance separates beings from divine grace, making him the ultimate cautionary example of how even the most devoted can fall through ego. Asura. Asuras are a class of power-seeking demigods in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology who constantly oppose the Devas in an eternal struggle for supremacy. Originally sharing divine status with the gods, Asuras lost their immortality through deception during the famous churning of the cosmic ocean, when the Devas tricked them into performing the labor of churning without receiving the Amrita, the nectar of immortality that emerged from the effort. This betrayal intensified their hatred and jealousy, transforming them into beings who embody negative qualities including pride, wrath, envy, and an insatiable desire for warfare and power. Despite their classification as demons, Asuras are not irredeemably evil, but rather represent the dangers of unchecked ambition and ego that can corrupt even divine beings. They possess immense strength, mastery over sorcery and maya, the power of illusion, and many display multiple arms while wielding devastating weapons. Famous Asuras include Mahishasura, the buffalo demon slain by the goddess Durga, Ravana, the 10-headed scholar king from the Ramayana, and Hiranyakashipu, who was killed by Vishnu's Narasimha avatar. In Buddhist cosmology, the Asura realm represents one of 6 realms of rebirth, characterized by perpetual conflict and jealousy. The Asuras reside in the lowest levels of heaven, or the upper realms of the underworld called Patala, and their eternal battles with the Devas serve to maintain cosmic balance, demonstrating that even beings born to privilege and power can fall through their own vices, while also showing that redemption remains possible through devotion and humility. Pishacha. Pishachas are flesh-eating demons in Hindu mythology, terrifying beings created either from the angry breath of the creator god Brahma or from the corrupted souls of humans who committed grave sins in life, particularly cannibalism, violence, or violations of sacred death rituals. These creatures haunt cremation grounds and burial sites, drawn to the scent of burning or decomposing human flesh, which they consume with insatiable hunger. Hindu texts describe them with dark or sickly complexions, bulging red eyes that glow in darkness, prominent veins visible beneath translucent skin, and sharp protruding teeth designed for tearing flesh from bone. Beyond their physical horror, Pishachas possess the terrifying ability to possess humans, causing sudden onset of madness, inexplicable illnesses, dramatic personality changes, and behaviors that ancient communities could not otherwise explain, possibly reflecting historical understanding of mental illness and neurological disorders. They can become invisible at will or shapeshift into attractive female forms to seduce unsuspecting men before revealing their true nature. According to the Atharva Veda and various Puranas, including the Padma Purana and Brahma Purana, Pishachas are most active during Amavasya, the new moon, and during the twilight hours between day and night, when the boundaries between worlds grow thin. They even possess their own language called Paishachi, and some texts suggest they can be controlled by powerful sorcerers and compelled to grant wishes. Traditional protections include sacred mantras, fire, holy ash, and proper performance of death rituals, reflecting how deeply these demons were woven into cultural practices surrounding death, disease, and the importance of correct cremation ceremonies in preventing the dead from returning as monsters. Rakshasa. Rakshasas are powerful shape-shifting demons in Hindu and Buddhist texts, beings created from the foot of Brahma or from the breath of cosmic entities during creation, ranging in temperament from mindless man-eating monsters to sophisticated warrior kings who command vast kingdoms with complex social hierarchies. These beings possess immense physical strength, mastery over Maya or illusion magic, and the ability to change form at will, appearing as humans, animals, or grotesque hybrid creatures, depending on their purpose and power level. The most famous Rakshasa is Ravana, the 10-headed, 20-armed demon king of Lanka in the Ramayana epic, a being so complex he defies simple categorization as evil, since he was simultaneously a devoted scholar, accomplished musician, fierce warrior, and dedicated follower of Shiva, who performed intense penances to gain divine boons. Ravana's abduction of Sita and subsequent defeat by Rama forms the central narrative of the Ramayana, and his death is celebrated annually during the Dussehra festival across India, with the burning of massive effigies. Rakshasas feed on human flesh, according to most traditions, but also perform religious rituals, study sacred texts, and engage in spiritual practices, demonstrating a moral complexity rarely seen in Western demon mythology. They possess supernatural abilities including flight, weather manipulation, resurrection of the dead, and invulnerability to certain weapons, though they are often vulnerable during daylight hours and strongest after sunset. In Buddhist traditions, many Rakshasas serve as protectors of the Dharma, despite their fearsome appearance and demonic classification, showing that these beings occupy a space beyond simple good and evil. Their portrayal in Hindu epics challenges the dichotomy between righteous and wicked, as evidenced by Ravana, who, despite his villainy, commanded respect for his devotion, knowledge, and adherence to certain codes of honor. Ultimately, teaching that power without dharma or righteousness inevitably leads to downfall regardless of one's strength or wisdom. Ifrit. Ifrits are among the most powerful and feared class of jinn in Islamic theology and Arabian mythology, supernatural beings created from smokeless fire who rank among the most formidable entities in the unseen world. According to Islamic tradition, all jinn, including Ifrits, were created by Allah from fire before the creation of humans from clay. And while they possess free will like humans, Ifrits are generally associated with the rebellious and malevolent members of jinn kind, who use their enormous strength and magical abilities for destructive purposes. The Quran mentions an Ifrit in Surah An-Naml, verse 39, where a powerful Ifrit among Solomon's servants offers to bring the throne of the Queen of Sheba before the prophet can rise from his seat, demonstrating both their incredible power and their potential service to righteous authority. In Arabian folklore, particularly the collection known as 1001 Nights, Ifrits appear as massive winged beings wreathed in flames who dwell in ruins, deserts, and other desolate places, living for hundreds or thousands of years and possessing the ability to grant wishes, though bargains with Ifrits typically end badly for humans who lack Solomon's divine authority. These entities can be bound by Solomon's seal, a powerful magical symbol, or controlled through Islamic rituals and Quranic recitation, though only the most learned scholars would attempt such dangerous practices. Unlike common jinn, Ifrits possess strength sufficient to carry massive objects across great distances, create powerful illusions, and engage in combat with other supernatural beings, making them prized servants for those who can control them and terrifying enemies for those who cannot. According to Islamic teachings, Ifrits, like all jinn, can be Muslim or non-Muslim, righteous or wicked, though the term has become associated primarily with the more dangerous and evil members of their kind, who rebel against divine law and torment humanity. Oni. Oni are ogre-like demons from Japanese folklore, massive humanoid monsters that serve as guardians and torturers in Jigoku, the Buddhist hell, while also terrorizing the human world as manifestations of natural disasters, disease, and human vice transformed into physical form. These creatures are instantly recognizable by their wild appearance, featuring one or more horns protruding from their heads, skin in vivid red, blue, or green colors, sharp fangs and claws, wild hair, and their traditional outfit of tiger skin loincloths, which reflects the Japanese concept of Kimon, the demon gate in the unlucky northeast direction, represented by the combination of ox horns and tiger imagery. Oni possess superhuman strength, capable of wielding massive iron clubs called kanabo, regenerative abilities that allow them to recover from wounds, and shape-shifting powers that let them disguise themselves as humans or other creatures to better deceive their victims. According to Japanese Buddhist tradition, Oni are born either from the souls of extremely wicked humans whose sins transform them after death, or they manifest as personifications of natural disasters like earthquakes, plagues, and famines that brought suffering to medieval Japan. The most famous Oni legend is Shutendoji, the drunken demon king who ruled Mount O with a band of Oni followers until the warrior Minamoto no Raiko defeated him, and Ibaraki Doji, his servant whose arm was famously cut off by the warrior Watanabe no Tsuna. During the Setsubun festival, held each February, Japanese families throw roasted soybeans while shouting Oni wa soto, fuku wa uchi, meaning demons out, fortune in, to ritually cleanse their homes and drive away evil spirits before spring arrives. Despite their fearsome reputation, some Oni have been reformed by Buddhist teachings and transformed into protective deities, demonstrating the Buddhist principle that even the most wicked beings possess the potential for enlightenment and redemption through proper spiritual practice and guidance. Yaoguai. Yaoguai is the broad Chinese term for supernatural monsters and demons that encompasses any being, animal, plant, object, or spirit that has cultivated power over centuries to transcend its natural form and gain human shape along with supernatural abilities. Unlike Western concepts of demons as purely evil entities, Yaoguai exist on a moral spectrum ranging from malevolent man-eaters to virtuous seekers of immortality, with their alignment determined by individual choice rather than inherent nature. The process of transformation requires anywhere from 100 to 1,000 years of cultivation, during which the creature absorbs spiritual energy from its environment, practices meditation, or studies Taoist and Buddhist teachings to advance toward enlightenment or greater power. The most famous Yaoguai appear in Journey to the West, the classic 16th century novel by Wu Qing'an, where the Buddhist monk Tang Sanzang and his disciples encountered dozens of these supernatural beings during their pilgrimage to India to obtain sacred Buddhist scriptures. Many of these Yaoguai, including the terrifying Baigu Jing or Whitebone Demon, who disguises herself as innocent humans to trick Tang Sanzang, seek to consume the monk's flesh because legend claims eating him will grant immortality due to his pure cultivation over 10 lifetimes. Interestingly, Journey to the West reveals that numerous powerful Yaoguai terrorizing the countryside are actually escaped mounts, pets, or servants of Taoist immortals and Buddhist bodhisattvas, demonstrating that even divine beings bear responsibility when their negligence allows their servants to wreak havoc on mortals below. Yaoguai typically retain some features of their original form even in human shape, such as foxtails, unusual eyes, or animal ears, and they dwell in remote mountains, deep forests, or elaborate cave systems where they establish kingdoms and gather followers. When confronted by celestial beings or accomplished monks, Yaoguai can often be subdued and recruited rather than destroyed, reflecting the Buddhist and Taoist principle that all beings possess the potential for redemption, and that violence should be a last resort when transformation and education remain possible options for even the most dangerous supernatural creatures. Nine-tailed fox. The nine-tailed fox, known as Huli Jing in Chinese, is one of the most famous and complex Yaoguai in East Asian mythology, a fox spirit that gains an additional tail every 100 years of cultivation, until achieving 9 tails after 1,000 years, signifying near-divine power and wisdom. The most infamous nine-tailed fox in Chinese literature is Daji, who, according to the Ming Dynasty novel Feng Shin Yanyi, or Investiture of the Gods, possessed the body of the last Shang Dynasty king's concubine and manipulated him into creating horrific torture devices, hosting debauched orgies, and committing atrocities that led to his dynasty's collapse around 1046 BCE. Fox spirits are masters of shape-shifting who typically transform into beautiful women to seduce men, and in malevolent iterations they feed on human life essence, particularly yang energy from male victims, or consume their livers and hearts to advance their own cultivation toward immortality. The symbolism and moral alignment of nine-tailed foxes has shifted dramatically across Chinese history, with early texts like the Shanhai Jing, or Classic of Mountains and Seas, portraying them as auspicious creatures whose appearance signals a golden age, while later stories increasingly depicted them as dangerous seductresses who destroy families and kingdoms through sexual manipulation and political intrigue. Fox spirits wielding nine tails possess extraordinary abilities, including creating elaborate illusions, moving with supernatural speed, controlling foxfire, and exercising powers approaching those of minor deities. The creature's appearance varies by moral alignment, with golden or white fur indicating celestial or virtuous foxes who serve the heavens, while red fur signals danger and malevolent intent. The nine-tailed fox concept spread throughout East Asia, becoming the kitsune in Japan, where fox spirits serve the Inari deity and hold more ambiguous moral positions. and Sagumiho in Korea, where they are portrayed almost exclusively as malevolent creatures who must consume human livers. Modern interpretations have begun reclaiming the Huli Jing as a symbol of female independence, power, and resistance against patriarchal control, reframing what were historically misogynistic cautionary tales about dangerous female sexuality into stories celebrating feminine agency and magical strength. Jiangshi, often translated as Chinese hopping vampire or hopping zombie, is a reanimated corpse from Chinese folklore that absorbs the life force or qi from living victims, moving through a distinctive hopping motion caused by rigor mortis stiffness that prevents normal walking. These creatures are created when a person's soul, composed of the Hun spiritual component and Po corporeal component according to Taoist philosophy, fails to properly leave the body after death, which can occur due to improper burial rituals, violent death, suicide, or when a person dies far from home and their spirit desperately seeks to return. The Jiangshi's iconic appearance features pale greenish skin, arms stretched rigidly forward due to rigor mortis, wearing Qing dynasty official robes complete with formal hat, and often with a yellow Taoist talisman plastered across the forehead, which priests use to control them. Being blind, Jiangshi detect living victims by sensing their breath or the flow of qi energy in their bodies, making holding one's breath a temporary defense mentioned in folklore and popularized by 1980s Hong Kong horror comedy films like Mr. Vampire, which standardized the modern image of these creatures. As Jiangshi age and consume more life force, they grow progressively stronger, eventually developing the ability to fly rather than hop and transform into more powerful supernatural beings if not stopped. Traditional methods of repelling Jiangshi include yellow Taoist talismans inscribed with protective spells, mirrors which confuse them, sticky rice that burns their flesh like acid, chicken blood, and the wood from peach trees, which is considered spiritually pure in Chinese tradition. Taoist priests in traditional stories sometimes control Jiangshi by placing talismans on them and commanding the corpses to hop back to their ancestral homes for proper burial, leading to eerie processions of hopping corpses following a priest through the night. The Jiangshi reflects deep cultural anxieties about death, the critical importance of proper funeral rites in Chinese culture, and fears about the Qing dynasty's Manchu rulers, as the creature's distinctive Qing official clothing links them to foreign control during China's last imperial dynasty. Mara is the personification of temptation, death, and desire in Buddhist cosmology, a demonic king who rules the sixth heaven in the desire realm and commands vast armies of demons dedicated to preventing beings from achieving enlightenment and escaping the cycle of rebirth. The most famous incident involving Mara occurs in Buddhist scriptures, when he assaulted the Buddha Siddhartha Gautama as he meditated under the Bodhi tree on the verge of enlightenment, first sending his 3 daughters named Tanha, representing craving, Arati representing aversion, and Raga representing attachment to seduce the meditating ascetic with sensory pleasures and promises of worldly power. When seduction failed to shake Siddhartha's resolve, Mara unleashed terrifying demon armies wielding weapons and conjuring storms to frighten him into abandoning his quest. But the Buddha-to-be remained unmoved and touched the earth with his right hand, calling the earth goddess to witness his countless lifetimes of merit and virtue. This earth-touching gesture, known as the Bhumisparsha Mudra, is commemorated in countless Buddha statues throughout Asia and represents the moment when enlightenment triumphed over the forces of desire and fear that keep beings trapped in suffering. Unlike the Western conception of Satan as a rebel against God, Mara operates entirely within cosmic law and Buddhist cosmology, holding his position as Lord of the Desire Realm through past merit while simultaneously working to maintain the cycle of rebirth that keeps beings under his domain. Mara embodies what Buddhists call the 3 poisons: greed, hatred, and delusion, and he appears throughout Buddhist texts attempting to dissuade monks, nuns, and practitioners from their spiritual path through doubt, temptation, and fear. According to Buddhist teaching, Mara cannot be destroyed through violence, but only transcended through wisdom, meditation, and the development of insight into the true nature of reality. Many modern Buddhist teachers interpret Mara not as an external supernatural entity, but as a psychological metaphor representing the internal obstacles, negative thoughts, and destructive desires that arise in the mind during meditation and spiritual practice, making his defeat a symbol of mastering one's own mental afflictions rather than conquering an external enemy. Pontianak is a vengeful female vampire spirit from Malay and Indonesian folklore, the ghost of a woman who died during pregnancy or childbirth, and returns to hunt men, particularly those who have wronged women or been unfaithful to their wives. According to traditional beliefs, throughout Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore, Pontianaks appear as beautiful women with long black hair that flows down to conceal a hole in the back of their neck, the spot where the unborn child or internal organs were violently extracted during their traumatic death. These spirits announce their presence through the crying of an infant or the sweet fragrance of frangipani flowers, though as the Pontianak draws closer, the pleasant scent transforms into the putrid stench of rotting flesh, warning potential victims of the danger approaching them. Pontianaks possess the ability to transform into owls or other bird forms to travel swiftly through the night, and they kill their victims by disemboweling them with their long, razor-sharp fingernails, targeting men almost exclusively in acts of vengeance for the vulnerabilities and injustices women face in traditional society. The creatures are strongly associated with banana trees, where they hide during daylight hours, and they can be temporarily subdued by driving a nail into the hole in the back of their neck, which according to folklore transforms them into beautiful mortal women who may marry and live normal lives. However, if the nail is ever removed, or if the marriage fails and the woman is mistreated, she immediately reverts to her vengeful spirit form and often kills the husband who attempted to control her through this method. Pontianaks embody cultural fears surrounding childbirth mortality in pre-modern Southeast Asia, where maternal death rates were tragically high, while simultaneously serving as warnings against male sexual violence, infidelity, and the mistreatment of women. Regional variations exist with the creature called kuntilanak in Indonesia, and sometimes distinguished from lang suir, an alternative form of vengeful female spirit, though the core characteristics remain consistent across Southeast Asian cultures. Modern horror films from the 2000s onward have popularized Pontianak imagery internationally, though these cinematic portrayals often emphasize pure horror elements while downplaying the social commentary embedded in traditional folklore about women's vulnerable positions in patriarchal societies and the deadly consequences of childbirth before modern medicine. Naga. Nagas are powerful serpent deities in Hindu and Buddhist mythology, semi-divine beings who rule magnificent underwater kingdoms filled with jewels and magical treasures while controlling rain, rivers, and water sources essential to the agricultural societies of South and Southeast Asia. These beings appear in multiple forms, including giant cobras with one or more hoods, humans with serpentine features like scales or snake-lower bodies, or fully human forms that disguise their true nature, and they possess the ability to shapeshift between these appearances at will. The most famous Nagas in Hindu mythology include Vasuki, who served as the rope during the churning of the cosmic ocean, Shesha or Ananta, who forms the thousand-headed serpent bed upon which Lord Vishnu reclines between cosmic cycles, and Musalinda, who protected the meditating Buddha from a violent storm by coiling around him 7 times and spreading his hood as an umbrella. Nagas hold ambiguous moral positions in Eastern mythology, capable of blessing humans with prosperity, fertility, and rain when properly venerated through rituals and offerings, but equally capable of cursing entire regions with drought, floods, and disease when angered or disrespected. Southeast Asian royal dynasties, particularly in Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos, claim descent from marriages between human kings and Naga princesses in their foundation myths, using this divine ancestry to legitimize their rule and connect earthly authority to cosmic order. Temple architecture throughout the region incorporates Naga imagery extensively, with serpent balustrades, multi-headed Naga sculptures guarding entrances, and depictions of Nagas supporting or protecting Buddha, Vishnu, and other deities in religious iconography. Nagas represent the dual nature of water itself, simultaneously life-giving through monsoon rains that enable rice cultivation and destructive through floods that can devastate communities, making their proper worship essential to agricultural prosperity. In Buddhist tradition, many Nagas serve as protectors of the Dharma, despite being classified among non-human beings, demonstrating that Western categories of angels and demons fail to capture the complex moral universe of Eastern religions where beings occupy positions beyond simple good and evil. The classification of Nagas as demons represents a Western interpretation imposed on Eastern traditions, as these serpent deities receive worship, maintain temples, and are considered essential to cosmic order, rather than enemies of divine will, showing how cultural context fundamentally shapes religious understanding and the categories used to organize supernatural beings. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now